Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Oh my God, Julie Gunlock. We are a week away from Christmas. Oh, we need to have some kind of an alert for that. It is 5:07 on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. Making sense of the news. A good Monday morning to all of you. This is O'Connor and Company. No, I'm not Andrew Langer. I'm not Andrew Langer. I'm not Larry O'Connor. I don't even know who I am at 5:07 in the morning, but I do know who I'm sitting here with, and that is my good friend Julie Gunlock. Hello, Julie, again.
Good morning.
Are you all set for next week? Are you getting set, or are you like me? And
I feel like I'm going to make viewers mad here, but I'm done.
Are you?
I'm done, and
you're like done.
Wrapped.
You're not done. Like I'm done. I'm just done. You're
no,
done.
no. I'm done. Everything's wrapped. Everything's bought. My Christmas cards go out today. They're all stamped and everything. Yeah, I'm good.
Millions of people out there, the listeners to O'Connor Company. I hate you, Julie Gunlock, for being done. I hate you. You're done. No, I'm just done. I'm just done. I think I actually, you know something. I think I am done with my shopping.
Good.
And now I can do what I always do, which is to turn over all of my wrapping to the kids. I let them. This is the tradition of my household. Anyway, we got a great show today. You're gonna want to tune in, as you always do, to all 4 hours of O'Connor and Company. We've got Tyler O'Neill joining us to talk about the new Southern Poverty Law Center report on pseudoscience, seeking to demonize folks who believe, well, maybe we don't have to call people by their preferred pronouns, as the pronoun police are wanting us to do in the federal government. We got Joe DeGeneva, who the legal analyst and former U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia. We've got Steve Knotts, the Fairfax County GOP chairman, on a story breaking about the Fairfax County School Board and untoward remarks made there. And then, of course, the Commanders lost yesterday. Sorry for the spoiler alert for those of you who are waking up who didn't know the Commanders lost yesterday. We're going to be talking about that with Trevor Maddich and what's next for this team. But in the meantime, I want you to cast your Wayback Machines to Friday, ladies and gentlemen, to a story that I was talking about with Patrice. This story about Gingerbread Man. Who is Gingerbread Man? Well, WUSA 9 has the story, has the background. Let's hear what they had to say.
So guys, imagine sitting down to dinner with your family. Your Ring app notifications go off, but it's not a delivery driver. It's not a neighbor. Nope. It is the Gingerbread Man. Yes, this guy right here, hanging out outside of your home.
We have a big picture window that faces North George Mason. And all of a sudden I heard my dogs going crazy, barking out the window. And I went to look, and there was a giant blow-up gingerbread man costume out on the sidewalk.
Lindsay Churchill says she didn't know what to make of it.
We kind of locked eyes, and the gingerbread man went on his way. So weird.
But less than an hour later, he showed up outside another home along George Mason Drive in Arlington.
My wife said, hey, listen, there's this guy. He didn't ring the doorbell. He's just standing there. He's in this gingerbread man costume. I'm like, gingerbread man? What?
This man, who asked us not to disclose his identity, says they didn't know what to do. So they just watched.
Also, we noticed the door was trying to be pushed. We looked at the camera. I'm looking at this guy in the costume.
He felt like he needed to report it to someone. So we called the non-emergency police line.
I just told him, listen, I just want to report this. This is not an emergency, but some guy came with a gingerbread man costume. And they're like, a gingerbread man? I'm like, yes, a gingerbread man costume. I have the video.
Several neighbors told WUSA 9 they saw the gingerbread man along George Mason Drive throughout the evening on Wednesday. And while he certainly didn't run, he also wasn't caught. And it's left these neighbors feeling a bit unnerved.
It is kind of like a horror movie, but in this costume, this whole ordeal, what was the goal? Is it just to see if we're home, or was it to actually enter the house? That's the stuff that, we're not really sure, but it's a good thing we had our door locked.
It was not holly jolly.
His gumdrop buttons were left intact. And so, obviously I had a reaction, which is to say that if this person showed up on my front lawn, I would be reaching for whatever implement of self-defense that I would choose under my constitutional rights, guaranteed right to keep and bear arms. But Julie Gunlock, Patrice Onwuka she was delighted by this. She said, "Oh, I would invite him in," which is, I love Patrice, but that is a very Patrice sunny reaction. I put it up on social media. 100% of the poll, 100% of the poll agreed with me on this, that it was disturbing. Your thoughts here, but I said and I know you answered me on social media, but I think everybody needs to hear your reaction here.
Yeah, my reaction. I'm definitely Team Andrew on this. Patrice is way too nice. This was super creepy, and I am blaming every unsolved murder and kidnapping on the Gingerbread Man. That is.
Well, this is where we are. I mean, obviously, right, the other reaction is, how dare we assume the gender of this gingerbread
Oh,
person.
right, of course.
Yes.
Then there's that. Yes.
Yes, God forbid that we do this. I mean, it's one of those things where, right, we could say, okay, well, at least it was at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. I guess the 8 p.m. it gets it even more disturbing, especially after dark. Actually, I can't imagine, now that I'm thinking about this, as I sort of verbalize this, there is no scenario in which this is not disturbing to me, that someone shows up on the property. Like a solo gingerbread person shows up on my property at any time of day in the suit, and it's not weird and creepy and just...
There's something also very creepy about him not ringing the doorbell.
Right.
That's what I find weird, is that, he's just standing... I guess, is just standing there. That's what I find weird.
Right.
If it's like, I'm ringing the door, it's like carolers. They ring the doorbell, you open the door, then you have to awkwardly stand there while people sing you carols, which is very, annoying. I'm sorry. I'm not a big carol person.
Do you get a lot of that in Alexandria these days?
No,
still?
I don't. No. And yes, I mean, I guess some people find it sad that tradition has gone by the wayside. Right. I personally am thrilled, because I find it awkward. I remember having to stand there awkwardly with my family. This is, way back in the 80s. But no, it does not happen. But again, carolers ring the doorbell.
Wait a minute. We got down a very good road here. You were on the receiving end of caroling in the 80s.
Yes.
You were not caroling in the 80s. Okay.
But I did.
It was not a
carol
family tradition.
No. I did carol in the 80s, which was, I'm not sure which one I felt more uncomfortable with. Singing to people who didn't want to be sung to, or having to stand there and listen. Anyway, the bottom line is carolers ring the doorbell.
Right.
And you come to the door and you listen to this little thing that they do, this little mini concert. The Gingerbread Man did not do that. He just is standing outside your house like a serial killer.
Or trying to get in, trying your door, jiggling your door to see.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That is where it gets really, really creepy and weird. I mean, listen, we hear these stories. I find every once in a while we'll go down the rabbit hole, me and my family, when we're watching videos, watching TV or whatever, of the creepy Ring camera videos, people just sort of showing up on people's porches.
Yes.
I mean, listen, there's the satisfaction of the porch pirates being caught stealing packages. I love those videos. But yeah, you get the videos. So
I think we should actually go to Patrice's house after the show, dressed as Gingerman, and just stand there and see if she thinks it's cute.
Oh, she would, but that's just it. I already know the answer. I know how this Hallmark movie ends. Patrice would invite us in for cocoa, and we just that will be the way it is. Listen, we'll continue in just a moment, but first it's 5:15 a.m. WMAL traffic and weather.
WMAL, making sense of the headlines, because common sense isn't so common. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
Julie, I just... something changed. You mentioned going caroling in the 80s and as uncomfortable. Maybe that's it. It was caroling, the forced caroling that gave us our slow slide into national psychosis. But there was a real moment in the 70s when I was in elementary school, and into the early 80s when I was in elementary school, and when you were in elementary school in the 80s and then schooled into the 90s. Where we were having these moments where people were actually able to come together, and there was some agreement, on things that were bad and things that were good. And we were all taught things like, something, we fought a major war in Europe where, thousands of American soldiers, hundreds of thousands of soldiers died, millions of Jews were killed. And something, as part part of this movement in America towards greater equality and understanding of one another, we recognize that hating Jews is a bad thing.
Yeah.
And that the Jewish people have been mistreated throughout the last 2,000 years of history.
Yes.
If not longer, right? If you go back into biblical history, we've got this latest poll, this Harvard-Harris poll, which is just a gut punch. You know, for someone who was born and raised culturally Jewish, not particularly religious. I still identify in that way, though I came to faith about a little over 10 years ago. Rising, staggering levels of anti-Semitism in America. 67% of 18 to 24-year-olds think Jewish people should be treated as oppressors. 44% of 25 to 35-year-olds think that they should be treated. This is by design, by the way. This is not malaise. This is not misunderstanding. This is out-and-out manipulation of the minds of young people here, Julie. I'm sorry. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, what bothers me so much, too, is I was looking at some of the responses to this poll, and Connor Friedersdorf, he's a writer, I think he's at The Atlantic. He responded by writing on Twitter, "If you still think the identitarianism of the alt-right and woke left are harmless, it's time to wake up and confront the evidence that 18 to 24-year-olds are the most anti-Semitic generation among their other racially and ethnically prejudiced attitudes." And, what is so troubling to me is that's what he got from this. It's not that oh yes, it's a problem on the fringe right and the fringe left. Okay, the fringe right has no power. Okay,
yeah.
The fringe left, the woke left he's talking about, they run the universities. They run every agency in this city. They run right now the federal government. Okay, and they run pop culture and Hollywood. They run all the newspapers and magazines. Okay. The idea that we're going to make this like, oh yes, it's just a problem on the fringes of both sides. No. It's mainstream on the left. And yes, there are some alt-right people who are anti-Semitic, and nobody pays attention to them.
Yeah, right. They are not the ones teaching the 67% of 18 to 24-year-olds and 44% of 25 to 34-year-olds that Jews are oppressors. The alt-right is not the ones doing that.
Yeah.
The alt-right is the one that we're all sort of pointing to and laughing at because they allegedly are showing up with tiki torches and khaki pants.
Yeah.
So this is a situation, right? I mean, it's by the way, it gets back to what Michael Greva. Do you remember Michael Greva? You ever have any interaction with him? Mm-hmm. Michael Greva was sort of a stalwart in the free market living government movement. He was on the board of CEI for many, many years. Not sure if he still is. Taught at George Mason. It was one of those situations where you talk about free speech. Michael Greva would say, you want these folks, to wear, to shout their ideology to the high heavens so that you can really underscore these are the people we do not want to be around, right? The alt-right kind of folks. But it's this situation in which the folks, as Julie rightly points out,
these people on the left become the president of Harvard.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
These people become, major leaders in.
They become the university professors who are teaching our kids that Jews are oppressors. That's the situation where we are. That's what happens down the road. Or the ones manipulating the culture and putting things out in the media that are more subtle in terms of propagandizing and indoctrination. Listen, we've got so much more to get to. Right now it's 5:22 on WMAL. Well, so, obviously, Julie, there was sad news a couple of months ago when Friends star Matthew Perry passed away. Late last week, we got the autopsy report. I don't think any of us were too surprised to find out that the toxicology report indicated massive amounts of drugs in his system, especially ketamine, which, as you will recall from the movie, oh, God, never mind. Something, you make a movie reference and you forget the movie title. I won't even go down there. But there's a doctor in a movie about astronauts, which he said that this guy had ketamine. It's a drug that they use to tranquilize horses. That he had that much in his system, and that anyway, it's entirely possible that he had this amount, and then slipped in his hot tub and died. That is, again, struggles with his demons, whether or not this was based in some previous medical condition. Your thoughts here?
Yeah, it's sad. It's interesting. In this article, they interviewed some doctors. They said that ketamine can put you in a trance state. And ketamine does not itself stop your breathing, but it can keep you from waking up if you're submerged. So essentially, they say this amount of ketamine that he ingested was a lot. Yeah. A lot was in his bloodstream. And one doctor said, you don't go swimming or go in a pool of any sort, because once you go into this trance, if you slip under the water, it's not like you wake up and you're like, oh, I'm under the water. You will just drown.
Doctors in a medical setting will give ketamine, small amounts of ketamine to kids if they have to get stitches to keep them from flinching. That's the whole idea, is that it sort of it puts a patient in a dissociative state. So you don't have these sort of automatic reactions that you might otherwise have. That's by design. This Philip Wolfson, one of the world's foremost experts on ketamine, and the author of the Ketamine Papers, Science, Therapy, and Transformation, said the amount found in Perry's bloodstream was a lot. He really did himself in. He must have taken a large amount. You don't do this and go swimming or into a pool of any sort. And that's exactly it. It's a situation in which they ingested this. They call it a K-hole, which is something that I found out. I don't know if you remember, this is probably about 15 years ago, the murder of Robert Wan in D.C. He was a lawyer in D.C., a horrific murder.
Oh, God, that was
which I knew a lot of the players involved in that because I went to college with them. Anyway, they talked about the guys using ketamine and going down the K-hole. Listen, we're going to be talking about the Senate staffer. It's 5:30 here on WMAL.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Well, good morning, everybody. We are a week out from Christmas. We are O'Connor and Company here on WMAL. I'm Andrew Langer, not Larry O'Connor, in for him for today, tomorrow, and back on Wednesday as well. Sitting with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Yeah. So it is 5:37 here on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We are making sense of the news the Monday before Christmas. It was the Monday before Christmas, and all through the station, not a creature was stirring. Anyway, I could rhyme that, but I won't. Anyway, we've got a great show today, as we do every day here on O'Connor and Company. We got Tyler O'Neill from the Daily Signal joining us next hour. In the 7 a.m. hour, we got Joe DeGenova joining us because we're going to talk to him about this story, certainly. We got the Fairfax County GOP Chairman, Steve Knotts. It never fails the Fairfax County School Board with making their affirmative missteps. And then in the 8 a.m. hour, we're going to be joined by Trevor Maddich to talk about the Commanders and just what's going on there. So this story, Julie, it got stranger and stranger when it broke. We got this, Friday afternoon. In fact, Julie, I was coming home from D.C. with my older daughter. We had been apartment hunting, and all of a sudden the Daily Caller, I get an alert from the Daily Caller about this story about sex videos being filmed gay sex videos being filmed in the Senate. And initially the story was that it might be a hearing room. We didn't know who it was. And then it just got weirder and weirder and weirder over the weekend. You saw this, Julie, your initial reaction to before we learned about the details, your initial reaction to the story.
Well, it's absolutely vile. And it is obviously showing complete disrespect rather, for
yes. That was a Freudian slip.
Yes, for the Institute of the Senate, and it's just so unfortunate, but not a surprise in Biden's Washington, right?
For those of
not a surprise at all.
For those of you who missed the story, I don't want to assume that you all know what happened. So on Friday, the story breaks that a video was being circulated among a small group of gay men a video that shows two men engaging in, shall we say, very explicit, inappropriate sexual activity in a Senate hearing room.
The Judiciary Committee hearing room.
Judiciary Committee hearing room. By the way, not a conference room, as some folks were reporting. And as Julie, mentioned to me this morning, as her husband pointed out, having sex on the Republican side of the dais.
Yes,
it looks like from the video.
Yes, we believe it was because there's people might not know this, that there are Republican sides of each committee where the Republicans come in and sit and where the Democrats sit. And I believe this was the Republican side.
Within a couple of hours, the Senate staffer was identified, at least on the receiving end. We don't know who was doing the filming. Aiden Meza Cherovsky, and I know I'm butchering that name. You could all tweet at me at Andrew_Langer for the correct pronunciation of the staffer's name, who was an organizer for environmental causes before joining Cardin's staffer for Senator Ben Cardin of Maryland. By the way, which is part of the reason why this is an important story, because it has to do with things that are local. He was in a video thanking President Biden when he was elected, this staffer. He apparently, well, we can get into the other things that he may or may not have been doing in a moment. But the bottom line here is he is alleged to have done this and has been fired, which would seem to indicate that it was, in fact, him in this video. And then, the question gets asked, okay, how does Senator Cardin's office explain themselves? Who the staffer was, how this was allowed to happen. Senator Cardin's office they issued a statement saying that this staffer has been fired and that they will not comment any further on the matter. And guess what? You know something? In Washington, D.C., where we have a massive press corps, and this is the local, one of the four local senators, the press should follow up on this and be asking Senator Cardin, how was this made to happen? No, you can't get away, Senator, with just saying he's been fired. No. I'm sorry, Julie, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm not surprised at all. Monica Crawley wrote this great tweet, cocaine, topless trans activists, communist dancers at the White House, Dem staffers having sex in Senate hearing rooms, a satanic statue in Iowa. Joe Biden interviewed by Dylan Mulvaney, drag shows on military bases.
Right.
Nothing surprises me with this Biden White House.
Naked transgender people at the White House.
And and the Dem-controlled Washington, D.C. This does not surprise me. And again, the fact that Ben Cardin comes out, I think you make a very good point that Ben Cardin says this is a personnel matter. Are you kidding me? This is a personnel matter? That is the lamest excuse. And again, the media doesn't push.
Right, because again, if this were a Republican staffer, and we talk about this, and I know we use this example quite a bit, but we have to use it again here on the show. If this had been a Republican office and a Republican staffer, the media would be camped out on this person's doorstep, cameras in their faces, essentially asking this person, "What were you thinking?
But
what were you thinking?"
What's so funny too? Yeah. Have you seen the excuse from this staffer? The staffer issued a statement where he says he's the victim here.
Right.
He's doing the whole revenge porn sort of excuse here, and saying that he's the victim. And I love that in his statement he would say, "I would never disrespect my workplace." Does he know there's a video? There's a video of him quite clearly disrespecting his workplace.
Yes. Well, maybe
that's a nice way of putting it.
Maybe he's being very specific here because the Republican side of the dais isn't his workplace. His workplace is the left side of the dais. So he's just disrespecting the Republican side of the workplace, and who cares about those Republicans? By the way, this is also the staffer who allegedly confronted Congressman Max Miller by yelling out "Free Palestine." And this is my favorite, not my favorite part of it. The whole story is my favorite, but this is a fascinating portion of this. He wrote a piece in BuzzFeed a couple of years ago about how people misunderstand Iran, those poor Iranians, which BuzzFeed has now removed. It was an 11, one of those listicles that people do. 11 reasons why you all misunderstand Iran.
He should go to Iran. See how they treat him there, right? I think
send
there's
the video
about
first.
Pushing people off the tops of buildings, I believe, is how they handle.
It's exactly it. Or in Palestine with the same thing.
Yeah,
send the video to Gaza and see how they would react.
Chickens for Chick-fil-A.
We've got so much more coming up. It's 5:44 on WMAL. As I'm sitting here looking at Julie's food porn on her Twitter feed, we're going to talk. Julie and I are going to talk about that offline. Hey, did you see what I cooked last night? No. And now I go look and I'm very envious. We got this story. I'm tired of this term, Julie. I am tired of this term, banned books. I'm tired of the term. Yeah. Listen, guys, if you can get your hands on the books, guess what? They're not banned. Carl Frisch was sworn into office on a stack of LGBTQ banned books at a Fairfax school board meeting. Some Fairfax school board members sworn in on quote-unquote banned books. 4 returning members and 8 newcomers were sworn onto the board at the ceremony Wednesday evening. Some members brought sentimental Bibles. Some brought stacks of books they connected with, and others used no book at all because, actually that may be the more offensive message. A number of members saw the ceremony as an opportunity to demonstrate their stance on the rise of book challenges. Carl Frisch, the vice chair and Providence District incumbent who will become board chair on January 1. So the board member was sworn in on a stack of 5 LGBTQ plus themed books.
Okay, we need to stop right there. We need to stop calling these LGBT books.
I know where you're going with
this. This is child porn.
Right. So basically the headline should read, incoming school board chairman sworn in on stack of porn.
Yes.
Basically, yes. Stack of porn.
And let's just be clear. This is a childless gay man who is on the school board. Doesn't have any kids in the school, okay? Isn't a dad, okay? And then he takes a stack of child porn and is sworn into office on that. But you know what? That actually is what Carl Frisch worships. He worships the left. He worships identity politics. He worships sort of his gay identity, and there's nothing more. And so fine. Maybe if that's really what he reveres, fine. But these books are filth. They're smut, and they're in your children's libraries.
So it's we're going to be joined by Steve Knotts in the 7 a.m. hour. He's the chairman of the Fairfax County GOP to talk about this. I mean, it is amazing to me. So you've got this is out of the Washington Post. Of course, the Washington Post is cheerleading for this. He became the first openly LGBTQ plus member elected to local office in Fairfax when he joined the board in 2019. Yay, woo, because, being your sexuality should be what defines you when you're engaging in children's policy here. This is astounding. The Fairfax County GOP, and we're going to be talking, as we said, with the chairman of the Steve Knotts, the chairman of the Fairfax County GOP. Carl Frisch went out of his way to insult Fairfax County's people of faith Wednesday night to the local officials and unions who endorsed him approval. They do. I'm sure they do, because this is the ideology.
It isn't just the local. I mean, look, Congressman Don Beyer, Jerry Connolly, they endorsed Carl Frisch.
Right.
Okay. And, it is so insulting. These are very explicit books showing sexual acts among children, discussing things like I mean, I don't want to go into it too much, but these are picture books. There are pictures of these acts in these books, not just talking about them.
Right.
And there is fierce opposition to this on the part of a lot of Fairfax parents, and the idea that he does this is just a big screw you to the parents who are concerned about this.
Here's the thing that gets me, right? You and I last Monday, we interviewed the superintendent of education for Oklahoma. When you and I both I came in for some very unexpected feedback by Oklahomans who were very angry at this guy. And the point in the end is that, there is a curriculum and an agenda. You and I just talked about it the first part of the hour about the indoctrination of our young people who have been taught over the last 2 decades to hate Jews, that Jews are oppressors. This is all about indoctrination. And the reality is that, when school systems, when states break ties with entities like the American Library Association, they're not breaking ties with them because they don't like librarians. They're breaking ties with them, not even breaking ties with them because they don't like education. What they don't like is the fact that these entities at these libraries are being used to indoctrinate kids in ideologies that are well out of the mainstream for Americans, and most American parents are unaware of what's going on. And you know something? When you're unaware that your kids are being indoctrinated, that's how you go within one generation to kids understanding that Jews have been murdered systematically and chased out of society systematically for centuries, to now having a 74% or whatever the percentage of young people, 18 to 20, 64% of young people aged 17 to 24 thinking that Jews are oppressors. It's 5:52 here on O'Connor and Company WMAL. Julie Gunlock, this is not just spitballing. This is we talk about indoctrination. We're not talking about it in some kind of theory. Oh, well, if you do this, you may get X. We see what happens. We see what happens when you teach kids that Jews are oppressors, and we see kids what happens to kids when you teach them that this kind of behavior is normal. When you go down this road of throwing LGBTQ plus picture books at young kids, you can't be surprised when 15, 16, 17 years later, they're dressing up in weird BDSM outfits and having sex in a Senate hearing room. Sorry, go ahead.
But I know I'm like a broken record here, but they are not LGBTQ books. They are porn. And there's an awful lot of gay people in this community that are as appalled by Carl Frisch and having a stack of pornography. It's Carl Frisch's immaturity. Ultimately,
right.
This is what it comes down to, and his disrespect for a lot of the parents in Fairfax.
And we're going to be talking about that with Steve Knotts from the Fairfax County GOP. Next hour, we're going to be joined by Tyler O'Neill from the Daily Signal. It is 6 a.m. right here on O'Connor and Company WMAL.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making